This is the third video in the Soul Captain series on verifying position. So as the captain sets his course, he understands where he's going to go and begins steering out of his port to the far distant port. You know, he may set a course. But if he were just to ignore it at that point and continue sailing on, he would almost assuredly not arrive in the destination that he wanted to. You can't set your course so accurately at the beginning. You need to continually re-verify your position and make small course corrections. This is the same thing you do when you're driving a car, as you're making adjustments in the steering wheel in relation to what you see on the road, and if you appear to be drifting out of your lane. So the captain will periodically take out a sextant, perhaps, and shoot the stars so he can determine his position on the globe. And once he's verified his position, he can see what course changes he needs to make to arrive at his final destination. So that's a very vital part of being a captain. Sextants may not be used so much today. You might use a GPS system or a LORAN system, but nevertheless, verifying the position and making corrections is important. So this translates to our directing our lives in the need for self-reflection and evaluation of the current situation we find ourselves in, our progress towards whatever goals that we have, and the continued appropriateness of our goals. You know, are they still the right goals given the current situation? So in ancient Greece, the Delphic oracle was famous for the dictum, "Know thyself." And so this process of reflection is essential for that self-knowledge, and it's a dynamic that continues, that is always evolving. Socrates, when he was put on trial in ancient Athens, the Athenians got irritated at him for the questions that he would ask and challenge people. So they put him on trial, and they found him guilty for corrupting the youth of Athens. But after his guilty verdict, this is in the, by the way, the Apology of Plato. After the guilty verdict, he said that the unexamined life is not worth living. So that's what we're talking about, is a continual re-examination. I alluded to this in video number 2, with the necessity to go back and reevaluate your goals. But this is a little more in-depth look at the continued reevaluation. Nothing you do, no course you set, is going to be perfect. And I think Leonard Cohen expressed this pretty well. He wrote I don't know if I'd call this a poem or a song, but this is a little verse from some of Cohen's work. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. So, a Air Force colonel, United States Air Force colonel, developed a method for formalizing this process of checking on where you are and then reacting to it. And that was U.S. Air Force Colonel John Boyd and his idea of the OODA loop. So OODA stands for Observe, Orient, Decide, Act. And he thought of this in the context of the Air Force, say with a fighter pilot who was facing an opponent and had to react very quickly. So he had to observe what was out there, orient himself to how he fit in relation to the larger picture, make a decision, and act. And what Boyd realized was that the speed with which this loop was executed was critical. If the fighter pilot could tighten his loop and make it happen much more quickly than his opponent, then he was at an advantage, because the opponent would always be reacting to his actions rather than he be reacting to the opponent's actions. But Colonel Boyd's idea, I think, generalizes much more to this idea of charting our course, especially if we take frequent stock of it. I would suggest that the morning time is a good time to do this, to observe as much as you can your current situation. What are the aspects of the current situation that you're in? Any changes from day to day that are occurring? What are the important factors that have come into play today? And then orient. What is your relationship to these factors, the new factors? And it's easy to say everything's just like it was today. You need to take a little, or yesterday. You need to take effort to think, what are the new factors that are here? So try to identify them, orient yourself to the new factors, and then make any decisions. And this is a time, this will dovetail in with the reflection on your goals. Are your goals still appropriate? Does the new situation have any implications as to the ease or difficulty of achieving a particular goal? So that's observe, orient. So you're deciding then you're going to go forward with a particular course, and then you will act on that, and those actions will occur during the course of the day. Now you can tighten up those loops if you want to do the OODA cycle more frequently than once a day. You could go less frequently if you want also, but there are advantages to having them more frequent. The more frequent reevaluation, you can make quicker course corrections. Now, one mechanism that can be helpful here is a natural human mechanism that, particularly in response to extreme pain, people tend to kind of dissociate themselves, and then they can look at themselves from sort of an outside viewpoint. So that's something that we have inherent in our abilities, but it doesn't always come forward. Now it's something that we can use even if we're not in extreme pain, but if we can give ourselves some emotional distance, it can create a level of objectivity that we may not have when we're more focused in our own head. So that's a possible tool you can use to distance yourself from some of your own emotions and thoughts and get a little bit more objective view. There are other perhaps related aspects to that dissociative mechanism. Socrates, who I mentioned before, spoke of the demonic voices in his head. And demonic doesn't have such a negative connotation as it does now. They weren't necessarily bad voices. In fact, they were good voices. And he liked to listen to them because they would give him good advice. The Quakers, I think, who value reflection and solitude, talk about listening to the still, quiet voice within. So just a very careful listening. And again, it's very similar, I think, in idea to that dissociative mechanism, a more objective look that can be heard if one will just be quiet enough to listen to it. So the OODA loop is helpful for determining position, and I suggested that be something that be put in place in the mornings at a minimum. Another good time for this self-reflection activity and taking stock is in the evening before we go to bed. One thing that this does is brackets both the waking hours and the sleeping hours by a little bit of reflection. So in the evening, you can look back on the day, say, what did I accomplish? How did I move towards my goals? Was it effective? Was it not effective? How was I spending my time? What, for instance, did I intend to do today but not do and need to reschedule into the future, or perhaps need to drop away and just never do? And then preparing for sleep, to just think if there's any questions that you'd like to that you need to work on, any problems, challenges you need to face, to bring those forward in your mind so that your subconscious can work on them. And also, one thing that's helpful both in the morning and the evening reflection is a little expression of gratitude. What one is grateful for. That can set the tone for both the sleep at night and the activities during the day. So that's a helpful tip. So that is what I have to say about verifying position.